putting an immediate dent on the idea of funding new technology. On March 20th, 1998, Stanley joined his brother and 2 NATO officials for a dinner meeting. Stan took a sip of cranberry juice, grabbed his neck, ran out of the restaurant, and fell to the ground, saying, "They poisoned me."
He fell down after eating at a restaurant nearby where he lived, fell down the parking lot, said, "I've been poisoned," collapsed.
And that's on the police report?
Yeah.
The police report confirms his words. The cause of death was written to be an aneurysm, though he left behind just enough materials for others to piece together his process. The full secrets of his device died with him.
So from this, I began to do more work with the administration, various people, friends of the president, the Rockefeller family. Lawrence was the white hat in that crowd who wanted us to bring this information out, actually hosted us at the Rockefeller Ranch in the Tetons. And one night he pulled me out on the deck and he said, "Well, you know, we really need you to do this." I said, "Lawrence, you're old, you're rich, and you're Rockefeller. What do you want me to do? I'm just a country doctor banging around in an ER in North Carolina." He says, "No, we want you to do this." I went, "Okay." So I'm the throwaway guy. I'm the guy you can throw away because my life doesn't matter.
We are back in Rachel, Nevada with our first 2 distinguished guests. Stephen Greer is a North Carolina doctor. He does a lot more than watch the skies. He fires off messages, and he says that someone or something is responding. Dr. Greer is looking for close encounters of the 5th kind. What, at this minute, do you believe?
Our assessment at this point is that there is at least one extraterrestrial civilization which has managed to make its way to our corner of the universe. And number 2, that there's no evidence at all that they have hostile intentions towards this planet. And number 3, that the priority at this point must be trying to establish some sort of a liaison to them, some sort of a diplomatic liaison to them, and that's what we're working on.
Is there a continued cover-up? Yes. Do those at the highest levels of government agencies know that there's a cover-up? Not necessarily.
Officer X, a high-ranking military veteran, joined forces with Dr. Greer in order to use his military and government influence to gain access to high-level officials.
I was able to arrange for a CSETI briefing to the then Vice Director for Intelligence for the Joint Staff, Admiral Tom Wilson, the same person who had been at Atlantic Command with me. At that meeting was Steve, Apollo 14 astronaut Ed Mitchell, Brigadier General retired Steve Lovkin, Syrian automatic Steve's right arm.
Well, Dr. Greer did indeed mount an initiative and did go to Washington, did speak with high-level government people. I attended and helped him with that. We briefed certain members of Congress, some of their staff, some of the people from the White House. We talked with people in the Pentagon. It led me to the belief that people in high-level government have very, very little, if any, information, valid information.
One of the most important of all the meetings was with CIA Director R. James Woolsey.
Here I fly up to Washington. The cover story was a dinner party. One of the things that I found was that this CIA director wasn't lying when he communicated to us that he had not had access to these projects. He was shaken to his core. We met for not 20 minutes, almost 3 hours. And by the end of it, I handed him, my hands were shaking, I handed him this document, and it was a position paper recommending executive orders and the things the Clinton administration and he needed to do to get control of this mess. And he looked at it, and he looked at me. He says, yes, he says, but how do we disclose that which we have no access to? And I almost wept. I went, what?
Dr. Greer approached many D.C. officials in an attempt to gain an audience. One of the people who took him seriously was former CIA Director Bill Colby.
If there's truth in it, there can be a danger in that situation. We've seen that happen in other cases. I said, you have to consider the possibility of some danger to not only your reputation, but to your person. I mean, people do react rather violently to some kinds of charges, or particularly if they're true.
Now, you know, I'm a 30-some-year-old doctor with 4 kids, a golden retriever, and a house in North Carolina. So I'm going, this is down the rabbit hole fast. But that is the situation, my friends, when you're dealing with secrecy that is criminal and illegal.
In 1997, in an effort to push his message deeper into Congress and the White House, Greer headed to Phoenix to prepare a video with his best evidence to show in Washington, D.C. While he was in the editing room, the biggest UFO witnessed event in history was about to happen.
On March 13th, 1997, when the Hale-Bopp comet was very clear in the northwest sky, thousands of people were outside trying to get a glimpse of it when they also caught a glimpse. These orbs, giant orbs, equidistant in a V formation of 1 mile to 2 mile wide in some very credible reports.
And that's the particular area where these phenomena keep popping up from my vantage point. The Native Americans living in the basin between South Mountain and the Estrellas have told me that not only were they looking up at the Phoenix Lights during the mass sighting, but they've been looking up at them for centuries.
I live in a community called Loop, northeast of Flagstaff, on the Navajo Indian Reservation. We'll have to go back in time one day before. We saw 6 to 7 lights that were circling along the horizon. The entire street came out. It was almost like a block party. Everybody turned off their lights, everybody sat in their front yards, and everybody watched this unusual light show.
I squeezed down the best of what I found and finally came forward in 2004 with the Phoenix Lights, a skeptic's discovery that we are not alone.
10,000 people approximately witnessed this, one of the largest experiences of this sort ever recorded.
The Phoenix Lights phenomenon didn't seem to be falsifiable in any way. It was being validated by most everybody that saw it.
The ultimate, shall we say, insult was the governor of the state of Arizona, Fife Symington, finally calling a news conference saying that he has finally got the answer to the Phoenix Lights, and he introduces some staff member dressed up as a space alien.
People got very angry because here is the top elected official of the state making fun of what I estimate to be close to probably 10,000 people saw this.
Under the watchful eye of the public, Symington retracted his statement.
If you had been here 10 years ago and standing out here and looking up there at the lights and the view, you would have been astounded. You would have been amazed.
The so-called Phoenix Lights were seen by many people in 1997. Skeptics say they were military aircraft or flares, but not the former governor.
It was probably some form of an alien spacecraft.
Barcelona to retrieve the evidence. Dr. Bravo.
Hi, baby.
Are you ready for the trip?
I'm ready for the trip. I'm so excited. We're going to do some very wonderful work, and I can't wait to get the results.
Upon arriving in Spain to look at the being for the very first time, I was kind of skeptical. It was definitely a game changer for my thought process to actually see it in person than to see it on film. the first thing we had to do was go to the radiology lab because we needed x-rays and CAT scans before we did anything.
Porque esto ya se lo comenté que era un poco difícil de hacer.
The best we can get.
Lo mejor que pueda pasar. Porque evidentemente no se puede manipular para nada. No.
The head radiologist at the center saw the beam and was quite impressed. And the first thing she said was, "Wow, that looks like an alien."
That's really okay. This is okay, that's good.
This one is complete.
And when the CAT scan images started coming up on the computer, it was just profound. And I saw inside the bone, and I saw, organs and lung material, brain material. I knew that this was not a hoax, it was not fake, that this was actually some sort of living creature.
Right, well, if somebody made it, they have a future in microsurgery because they were smart enough then to put in these millimeter-wide bone holes where the arteries go in to feed the bone marrow. And so now the challenge is to prove what it is, right? My interest, frankly, is to disprove that it's anything unusual or anything paranormal. I would like to prove that this is human. I would like to prove that this is just an interesting mutation, but obviously if you leave your mind open, or I should say if you leave your mind closed to alternatives, you'll never see what those alternatives might actually be. In every situation with scientists, your reputation's at stake. I have every expectation that even doing this is going to lead to some ribbing from some of my colleagues, right? But I think that that's perfectly acceptable because at the end of the day, who's going to validate these things? If someone isn't willing to step forward and do it right, then you're going to have it sitting out there forever, hanging in limbo, right? I mean, if you let other people and their opinions stop you from believing what you know to be true, then all you're doing is stopping the possibility of progress.
Anytime anybody tries to study this subject seriously, we're subject to ridicule. I'm a full professor at a relatively major university, and I'm certain that my colleagues at the university laugh at me and hoot and holler behind my back when they hear that I have an interest in studying unidentified flying objects.
There's really a subtle kind of suppression at play here. You don't worry about what the CEO of Enron thinks about what you say. You worry about what your friends think. You worry about what your parents would think if you posted whatever you care about on Facebook or something.
We take the risk to appear to be a crackpot. There may be people who are going to be threatened by that for any number of reasons.
My feeling was that I was involved in a lot of strange activities, so I tried to say to myself, let's not look at this with too much exposure and mention it because there's a question of credibility.
This should be the subject of rigorous scientific investigation and not the subject of rubbishing by tabloid newspapers.
MUFON is the Mutual UFO Network, and it was founded in 1969 by Walt Andrus. And our mission statement is the scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. MUFON is the world's largest UFO investigative organization. We have approximately 3,000 members worldwide. Approximately 500 of those have their PhDs. These are people who really would like to delve deep into the UFO phenomenon and try to figure out not only what it is, but how it's happening.
Armed with what he thought was some of the best available evidence, including the Phoenix Lights, Steve Greer organized a Project Starlight briefing before several Congress, Pentagon, and White House staff members. Things seem to be on track for disclosure.
Of the device and the internal, all of it, with a lot of detail, and this is a cutaway. This was done and escaped government control, whereas the Bentwaters case took 20-some years in England. So this is in our possession and not the Ministry of Defense. So
Where it would never be found.
Where it would be going to a black hole. Yeah.
But then, the bad news came. Sherry Adamiak, Steve's partner and longtime friend, along with Steve and another team member, were all suddenly diagnosed with a malignant cancer.
I've had these experiences since I was a child or a young man, but to articulate them so other people understand them, I need someone with capacity to hear it. She was that person. I mean, it's been...
You can't resolve
it's
things.
been very hard for me.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
I know.
You get up
I know
every
it has
day,
been.
you know, but... One of the last places she wanted to come was here. So she asked that her ashes be placed on the land. So we put her ashes around that tree. I don't take anything for granted, frankly, and so each time that I do a presentation or lead a group, I think this may be the last time. The thing that has kept me going the most is not any external thing, but the experience of that near-death experience where I know that there's an aspect of us that doesn't die. That is why I can go mano a mano with these elements and not be afraid. I shouldn't say be afraid, not stand down. Everyone has fear. I've certainly had my fears. But it gives you an anchor so that you can go forward.
More than ever, Dr. Greer understood what he had always sensed. It was not the power of a cosmic field or quantum vacuum that would propel us into a new world. It was the mind.
This really is the opening to an entirely new science of consciousness.
You can maybe think of consciousness as a television set. On the TV screen you see pictures and sounds and so forth, and if you tried to find out where that was coming from and you looked inside the television, you're not going to find it. It's not there. The signal is in the radio waves around it, invisible to us, that's being interpreted by the television as pictures and sounds. So this is very much like the state of how we understand the mind and consciousness.
Dr. John at Princeton proved that putting your awareness on a device that was a random number generator would affect it.
So you have this random number generator and it's producing 50-50 ones and zeros. And then you introduce a person into the picture and you tell them, try to affect it with their mind. Think more ones or more zeros. You measure that, and sure enough what they found was that there are more ones or more zeros being produced that correlate to that person's intention. So we can see effects being produced forwards and backwards in time, which is really strange. Distance doesn't seem to matter as much. You can get the same strength of effects if you're right in front of the REG or if you're on the other side of the planet.
Consciousness is a non-local field, and it isn't limited to your brain waves and body.
Dr. John once had the opportunity to ask the Dalai Lama